I also want to add my welcome to everyone else's, and my responsibility right now is to set a little bit of the context for our wonderful honored guests who are going to be speaking in just a couple of minutes. Our role really in working this year has been around how we can expand our own capacity as arts educators, arts leaders, arts advocates, to really tap into that incredible potential that we know lives inside of our students and our communities. Potential that too many times is made invisible, but it's our responsibility to bring it out, to allow it to flower, to make it visible everywhere that our students go. And in part, we do that by creating environments that that build community, that build environments where students feel like it's their place and they belong and they have a powerful role there. We do it by supporting self-determination and making sure that our students' identities are affirmed, that their languages and cultures and lived experiences are the center of where we start with learning and where we build, by elevating trust and self-respect so that our students can experience dignity in their learning, and by modeling democracy so that our students can be engaged in decision-making and solution-seeking around the issues that are important to them, their families, their communities, and ultimately to all of us in the world. And so we really believe that the arts are a vital vehicle for knowing our students and for creating environments and opportunities for them to walk their own paths, to let us hear their voices and their thinking, and to help them build their own strengths and skills and competencies to be the leaders that we need them to be if we're going to have a powerful world and a safe world in which to live. So to share some of their stories and to inspire us to enter this colloquium with the right mindset, we have two honored guests this morning. We have with us Marcos Aguilar and Breon Bain. I'm going to introduce both of them, and then they'll come up one after the other and speak with you for a little bit. Marcos is currently responsible for creating a high-performance organization that ensures the academic achievement of every student. And he's done that through his involvement in education, first as a prominent student activist in the 90s, then as a history teacher, and then as a traditional Aztec dancer and community organizer. And it was because of his passion for education that he eventually led the launch of Semillas Sociedad Civil, which is a nonprofit organization that operates 2 public charter schools with 500 students, K-12. He's going to be sharing with us some of his story in creating an environment that builds on students' cultures, languages, and experiences, and that values the arts as a human right. Breon Bain is a poet, performing artist, actor, and prison activist who interweaves social justice themes and spirituality with intricate wordplay, song, and soaring stage presence. Cornel West described him as the greatest artist and activist to emerge from Harvard Law School in decades. His award-winning grassroots organization, Blackout Arts Collective, has taught artists and educators, has brought artists and educators to prisons and public schools across the country. His story is one of speaking out through the power of the arts to address the inequities often faced by our students and to offer the arts as a very powerful solution to some of that marginalization. So without further ado, let's welcome Marcos Aguilar.
Thank you all for inviting us, and Ms. Pettiford in particular for asking us to come and start by remembering our place in the universe here in our language. Ilhuicampa, Tlaltipacampa, Quisayan Tonajle, Calaquian Tonajle, Miclampa, Huizlampa, Tonacatecotzintle, Tonacasihuatzintle, Ometecotzintle, Ipanse Xitle, Ipanse Mesle, Ipanse Tonalzi, Tonican Chanejque, Mihuac, Maidu, Tongva, Tonican Chanejque, Yajac Texuquisquitica, Tonahuan, Totawan, Tohuehuetque, Tolamatque, Najanitla Socamachilice, Najanitoca Marcos Aguilar, Iwanotlayecansi, Xinaxcalmecac, Iwananahuacalmecac. My name is Marcos Aguilar. I'm a Tlayecansi, a traditional guide of Calmecac, which is a community school that is called in Nahuatl Xinaxcalmecac for our elementary school and Anahuacalmecac for our high school. Xinaxcalmecac means the house of higher learning of our seeds, and Anahuacalmecac means the house of harmony of our seeds. Let me put on this slideshow.
Right here. And you just click it.
Okay.
On the side.
Okay, thank you. So, in the very short amount of time that we have, let me first of all start off by saying that this wasn't any one man's vision in organizing our schools. It was definitely part of a long trajectory of struggle that in some ways started 500 years ago, in other ways started 2,000 years ago, in other ways started as recently as 50 or 20 years ago. Pick a point in history, and we've all been talking about creating spaces of learning for our children that respect our autonomy, that respect our place on the earth, that respect our languages, our culture. And we simply, as an organization, as a small group of teachers at first and parents, picked up on that responsibility and took it on as a personal obligation. But it's definitely it's grown into something that's become very powerful and yet still very humble in our community in Los Angeles. We have 500 students, and those students come from all over. They come from as far away as Fontana, from as far away as Venice, and we're in East LA. So parents are seeking it because we're the only school in all of Los Angeles County, in particular in the city of Los Angeles, that can provide both an international education, the only native language that's being taught in any public school, or any private school for that matter, that I know of in any serious degree, and on top of that, provide a public educational system that allows our parents a choice. So it's very unique and born of a struggle that tells us that it's wrong for us to speak this language or any other language that isn't English sometimes, that it's wrong for us to think differently, and it's wrong for us to look differently. And so this space became a space first and foremost where we say that yes, it is right and it's good and it's beautiful, and what's more, our children should learn to appreciate that about themselves. And that's a very human struggle. It's a very positive thing to organize in our community. But it's also part of seeking a regeneration of ourselves. It isn't just being stuck in the mythical past, but creating it anew. And that's what Semillas is to us. Semillas is a beginning to a different level of education as far as we're concerned. Semillas became the first international baccalaureate world school in the city of Los Angeles, authorized by the International Baccalaureate, which is pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned, because there should have been a whole lot of other schools before us. We have very little money but a lot of passion, and so our teachers have been very dedicated for the last 10 years to creating the type of learning environment that can be valued anywhere around the world, which was important to us. Well, the IB is just one little piece of it, really, because it's just the way that we explain ourselves to the educational system. But internally, you know, we have a longer trajectory of history, and this is something that was born in us as young people, the traditions of the Aztec dance. It's not just dance. Like most of you may know, as being artists yourselves, traditional dance, traditional dance it creates a sense of sacredness, a sense of space, a sense of belonging, and it also is a sense of obligation to contributing to the well-being of the world. And it allows you to do this as a dancer. So the dance that we developed over the last maybe 1,000 years or so in this current form. Was brought into East LA by elders that brought it from Mexico, from central Mexico, decades ago. And we became students of that tradition early in our lives and brought it into the schools as teachers. And as teachers would travel around Los Angeles with their students dancing, and never felt that was never quite what we needed to do. But the beauty about Danza Azteca, and the beauty about art in any pueblo, in any community practically in the world, that isn't, you know, stuck mining coal for 18 hours a day. And even there you'll find art, I'm sure, in the coal mines, and find some little piece of coal that some miner carved in the dark. But the beauty is that it belongs to everybody, and that there is no border between fine art and popular art or folk art. And that's an outstanding principle for us to live by, which the Danza Azteca symbolizes. To have thousands of dancers in the streets, pretty much in any country, but in this case in our tradition, that on their average day, and there are working people, you know, cleaning houses or washing cars, but on these special days of festivity become people of importance, of principality, of dignity, of a connection that's deeper to the earth. The Danza Azteca is a way for our people to continue those traditions, those ancestral traditions of remembrance, but also of a hope and a longing for the future. And for the kids to learn this is important, because it's been 500 years since our schools were shut down. In one way, our schools were closed. Traditionally, we had our own learning institutions. It's something that many people may not realize. We had these Calmecacs, Telpochcali, Xpochcali, Cuicacali, different types of learning institutions that were public schools in Mexico and throughout what anthropologists call Mesoamerica, what we call Anahuac or Tawantinsuyo. And these schools taught our dances in a traditional way. I envision it a lot like what I think of when I think of ancestral Taoist traditional teachings in China. A lot of similarities there. And so for us to be able to reclaim that and relive that becomes an amazing experience for myself, which I don't particularly think of myself as an artist. I know I am, but I don't walk as one in this society, because it's not an act of creation that I own unto myself, but something that we're doing as a community. So our easel is our community. So the Danza Azteca becomes part of that long trajectory. So coming to our kids, in Xinaxcalmecac and Anahuacalmecac, we have different ways in which the art becomes the center of gravity, if you will, that center of place for all of us, through our language, through our songs, our storytelling, our visual art, our dance. The students are part of a flower that represents our community. The Keynote is the brotherhood and sisterhood among the parents. The Temachtiani are teachers. The Huehuetque and the Lamatque are the ancestors, and or also the grandparents. And our Momachtique are the students, those that are cultivating themselves. And we have fiestas, which are where we create mass canvases of art in our community dances. And all the students participate, regardless of whether they feel they're a good dancer or not, regardless of whether or not they continue to dance when they grow up. That's not really the point, but to have them go through that experience of cultivating themselves and having at least that one experience, the kids tell us, has been amazing. Many of our kids have gone on to other schools. Their parents leave, they move, things change. They'll always recall those moments of sacredness that they experience as a part of a community. Our students have danced all over the world. They've danced in China. We've danced all over Los Angeles, and the presentation in China was particularly special. Out of 250 somewhat American students that participated in one exchange that our students participated in as the youngest students in the 8th grade, the Chinese representatives of Hanban, the Chinese government's organizing entity, picked them in particular to give a presentation. No other American students were given a stage in the culminating ceremony. So it was a pretty big honor for us. We're dancing there at one of our sister schools in Beijing. We've also incorporated Tai Chi, and Tai Chi has been important to us since the beginning, both as creating a sense of an exercise, but also as a moving meditation itself is also important in creating and understanding connections to other people's arts. we've been recognized by the International Baccalaureate as a unique model. It's very difficult for the International Baccalaureate, which is growing in the United States mostly and more than any place else in the world, to develop a sense of international mindedness in the United States. It's very difficult, they tell us, for Americans to think about international mindedness outside of the American context. And we're challenging the IB to think beyond international mindedness in the first world and to think of us as inclusive of indigenous peoples as well, which is a different mentality about international mindedness. We have a story that we told when we first tried to explain about what our vision was, and that is about an eagle. It's based upon this concept of art being a right as opposed to a privilege for a few or just something that's superficial. There's a United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that has just been authorized. The single country that's holding out on passing and recognizing this declaration is the United States of America, unfortunately. As we speak right now, ambassadors from different nations around the world, indigenous nations, are meeting in the United Nations in New York at the installations there, discussing the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And I'll just call your attention to the 11th article, which recognizes that it's our right as indigenous people to practice and revitalize cultural traditions and customs that include our ceremonies, technologies, and visual and performing arts and literature. And secondly, those of you that are in positions of power or relative power that can do something about this, they also recognize that states shall provide redress through effective mechanisms in which to do that. And so for us to think about that as something that we can begin to implement and not have to wait for Mr. President to say, yes, we agree, but that these are the message I'm carrying to you from about 300 chiefs that we met with in Arcata, California a few weeks ago as we convened before going to the United Nations, is for us to begin enacting these and not have to wait for the United States officially to agree to do so. And this really does bring to sense this concept that we began with. A long time ago, the elders say there was an eagle that questioned why eagles couldn't fly. At that time, eagles couldn't fly. So they went to a grandfather and a grandmother and asked them why they couldn't fly. And the grandparents didn't know why. They said, why don't you go and find out? So they gave him a searching song to go out and fly. And that eagle went out to go out and seek flight. And that eagle went out and began singing that song. Shnesh pale we tata we na ni ne ke ni ne mis ika intioyo ni titlanis not la tolsi not la tolsi. So bring us memory, bring us memory. And they went. The young eagle went walking into the path that the elder eagles told him to go, and came across a butterfly floating on the wind, and asked the butterfly, "Butterfly, how is it that you began to fly?" He said, "It's simple. I just flap my wings and I get picked up." So the eagle thought about that a minute and tried doing the same thing, but it just didn't work. Didn't pick him up the same way. So he kept walking and came across a mockingbird. Saw the mockingbird up on the tree, flying up and down, coming back, and just cawing all kinds of different ways. And asked the mockingbird, "Sinson," in our language, "Sinson, how is it that you came up there to fly?" And the Sinson just said, "Sinson, how is it that you came up there to fly?" Because the Sinson just repeats all the other birds. And give them no help. So the eagle kept walking, getting dark now. Saw these beings flying around in the night and saw that they were these bats. Tzotzil. Said, Tzots, how is it that you go up there? How is it that you fly? And the Tzots said, "It's simple. Just hang upside down. And when you let yourself go, you'll automatically start flying." So the little eagle climbed up the tree, hung himself upside down from his claws, tried to let go, and of course fell flat on the ground. He says, "That's not going to work." Kept going and walking. And then the sunrise came. And with the sunrise came the hummingbirds. And he saw the hummingbirds all around him and asked one of the hummingbirds, "Huitzilin, Huitzilin, I've talked to hummingbird, I've talked to the papalo, the mariposa, the butterfly. I've talked to the sensont, the mockingbird. I've talked to the sots, the bat. And now I just don't know who else to ask. How is it that you fly? And the hummingbird looked down at him. Huitzilin said, go back to your people. Ask them to come together and to think about that and talk about that. And you'll learn how to fly. So he went back, thoroughly depressed, didn't expect to learn anything. He let his grandparents know what he had learned on his path. And so they pulled out the conch shell and blew it. And as they blew the conch shell, the eagles started coming together. And when the eagles started walking together, they hadn't seen each other for a long time, so they started feeling a lot of joy. And they started to pick themselves up, started just trotting at first, and then they started dancing. And when they started dancing, their wings started to pick up a little bit freer, and they started to flutter and fly. And finally, as they were dancing and flying around, it all came to them. And so they had to find their own way, but they had to do it through dance, they had to do it through beauty, they had to do it through community. And this was a teaching that we share with our kids as a way of explaining what our school is about. So we thank you. What we do is unique. It shouldn't be unique. There are 100,000 Nahuatl-speaking students in the state of Morelos, about 800,000 Nahuatl-speaking students in the state of Guerrero, and about 500,000 throughout the rest of Mexico and in the United States. And Nahuatl is only one of about 56 languages just from Mexico. There's another 56 native languages from Guatemala and countless others from all the other countries in this land. And it's important for us to keep our songs, it's important for us to keep our dances, it's important for us to keep our languages, because from our stories comes the inspiration and the hope for the future. We're coming to a time of regeneration. Hopefully you as artists can see through the squares that people try to put us in and can step out of those boundaries and help us give this rebirth to the earth. Thank you very much.